Morning, Blue Troopers, and hope everybody's having a wonderful Monday. So, a couple of things. I just got a box from Malta, and it is an unboxed Lindbergh AH-1G Cobra helicopter, and it was beautifully wrapped. I knew what it was, so I opened it before I came out here. Only thing, and he told me it was missing, it's a gift from a viewer in Malta, and the only thing that was missing is the canopy. So I'll have to figure out what I want to do about that. So I either need a 1/48 scale AH-1G canopy, or I'm going to have to make one, or it's going to be a diorama with a bunch of little mechanics going, where did the canopy go? And there is actually a story along those lines. When I was a flight instructor, one of my students was a former private pilot and former Army helicopter pilot who'd flown Cobras in Vietnam, and his name was Chuck, and he bought a Cessna 140, and he wanted to get recurrent. So he was a student in that I was getting him recurrent. Maybe, you know what? He'd flown in the Army. I think I stand corrected. He actually did have to finish his pilot. He'd never got his private ticket. But he had been an Army helicopter pilot, and he had flown with his dad. So he got a Cessna 140. I got him up to speed. He went and got his private certificate in it. Great guy. And he told me a story, and these are the kind of stories that, you can't make this stuff up kind of stories. And that was that apparently the Cobras would come streaking in low over the base, and as I understand it, there was like a base hospital, and a lot of the nurses would sunbathe on the roof, so the chopper jocks, being chopper jocks, would come flying in over, catch a glimpse of the girls out in their bikinis or whatever. And apparently one day, because it's a military base, somebody just strung up some communications or power lines or something, and of course everything was done very ad hoc back then. It wasn't like today where everything gets constructed. There's a NOTAM, a notice to airmen about it. They just did it, and one of the chopper jocks went streaking over and caught him. Now normally power lines or communications lines and helicopters have a very sad ending, but this one, they got lucky. Well, apparently they didn't catch the power lines on the rotor mast or anything. They caught the cables right here by the chin turret, and it sheared off the chin turret and the belly skin and the skids, but everything broke away clean. See, if you remove the skin from the bottom of the Cobra, I guess I should be holding this way, you can see that side. If you remove the skin of the Cobra, the gear, the skid, bolts to the bottom, and the turret, which can be removed for maintenance, can be removed. So these can be made to break away, and it stripped off the skin, the skid, and the turret, but the helicopter was still flying. So what they did was, I guess they radioed what had happened. They hovered the helicopter, and some crew chiefs, I think he said they found a bunch of sandbags, and they only had so much fuel on board, so they were in a big rush, but they built up sandbags underneath it until he could set the helicopter on it, because now with the bottom gone, it's pretty flat underside, and they wedged all the sandbags in and everything, and they were able to shut the helicopter down. And once you remove power from the rotors, the helicopter doesn't wobble so much. You see helicopters can wobble. That's when they're under power, but when you reduce the power, the helicopter blades are so balanced that it's actually fairly steady. And it managed to come to a stop on the sandbags without doing any damage to the helicopter. And he said, as amazing as that was, what really amazed him was the next day he goes out the flight line and the helicopter was completely repaired. They had put a new skid on the belly, or maybe recovered the old one. They had replaced the chin turret, and they'd replaced all the skin, and it was back in service the next day. So chalk one up for the Army crew chief. So I always remember that story. Well, anyway, I'm going to have to find a canopy for this, or this is a 1/48 scale Lindbergh. This was, like I say, sent to me by Malta. I sent him he wanted the that Golden Knight, the Twin Otter I'm working on, he wanted the box and the original decal, so I sent him that, and he sent me this. And that would make a nice companion to the AH-1S I have on display, which is that's the monogram kit, I believe. Which, by the way, is a real good kit. For what you pay for it, I think that monogram AH-1S kit is. I had no complaints with it. The S is what they had when I was in, but the Guard still had some Gs. I still occasionally saw a G, just like I occasionally saw a UH-1M or a UH-1D when I was in the Army, usually from a National Guard unit. People tend to forget how long old equipment will stay in service with the military and Guard and Reserve units. Also, we talked about this on the live stream, this beautiful painting that TD did, Tom Daniel. And he had emailed me before and told me about this, but I had forgotten about it. He had written a short story called Midnight Flight, which he sent me here. And if he gives me permission, I might make a video, just read this as like with his picture, sort of like a radio show. So I need to ask him about that. That might make a nice little project that I could knock out in a day. And he had emailed me earlier about the things he was sending. I just couldn't find the email, so he emailed me back. I believe this one was called Sedona Departure. And, you know, it's funny. I've flown Cessna 310s, but I've never flown one of the cabin class twin Cessnas. And I have flown a Piper Navajo, which is Piper's competing product. And the thing about the twin Cessnas, if you're at all interested in general aviation aircraft, Cessna, if you see them from the top, if you look at the top of a Piper Navajo and the top of a cabin class twin Cessna, the Cessnas, the engines are further out and they have much bigger tails on them. And the reason for that is Cessna wanted to move those noisy propellers away from the cabin and make it a little quieter inside. But in multi-engine aircraft, in case of an engine failure, you know, you have thrust on each side, you lose an engine. Well, now the thrust is only on one side, so the airplane wants to turn. So they have to put a huge rudder to offset that moment or that leverage that the now working engine has. Everyone I know has flown them, loves them. Very wide track landing gear. I see the 421s the 402s from Cape Air all the time. Now, this one has normal engines on it, but if you see an airplane that looks like this, but the top of the motors, there's a hump where the propeller is at, that means it has geared engines, which, without getting to a systems class, there's a planetary gear. So the engine can run at high RPM and the prop turns at lower RPM to give it a lot of torque, a lot of power. And that's really handy when you're getting up into pressurized and thin air. Ones like this have just regular direct drive engines, which have a longer service life and are less maintenance. You also have to be extremely careful with geared engines moving that prop because those gears have to move. If you just go up there and yank power off of one of them, you can strip the gears in it. I actually know somebody that had that happen to them on an old T-bone twin Bonanza, and they were doing a check ride with the FAA, and the Fed, who wasn't particularly experienced with geared engines, was doing an engine failure on him, and he just reached up and just yanked the throttle back, and it was such an abrupt change of power that it actually broke the planetary gear, and they actually were on one engine. And so he claims his immediate reply to the FAA guy was, you know, you just bought that. Anyway, this one, the Stoof, the S2F, this is of an original painting that TD did that was in the Los Alamitos enlisted men's mess hall for a long time, which probably now belongs to his buddy and or their family. So anyway, and of course he also did the Whirlwind. A lot of guys sometimes they get this confused, I think, with the Hornet. This airplane could have been a great plane. It was taken out of service in '43. And after I got this, I did a scant bit of research, and apparently the problem the Whirlwind had was the Peregrine engines. They never got them to work right, and also the airplane used, because it was a big multi-engine single-seat fighter, it used a lot of aluminum. And if you want to believe the Wikipedia page, about 3 times as much aluminum as a Spitfire. So they were like, you know what, just not worth it. And it's a shame. If they could have gotten some decent engines for that airplane, I think it would have been something. And also a question came in about the diorama, which I'm still working on, of course. Unfortunately, a lot of the photos, they look good on the back of the little viewfinder, little screen on the camera. But when I got them on the computer, they were blurry. And so I'm going to have to retake a bunch of photographs. When you're taking these depth of field photos, if you have a timer on the camera that'll go 3, 2, 1, and then take the picture, I recommend you use it, because what I think's happening is some of it could just be the depth of field focus. You can't get close. You have to be backed off. But one of the things that happens also, though, is that when you take the picture, even though it's on a tripod, the camera moves just a little, and I believe that is instilling some blur. If you have a timer, hit it and then take your hand off. I don't think my camera should have a timer in it, but I can't find it, so I have to go into the manual or go on Google. It's a Sony A65. Anyway, I went through the regular tool settings and there was no timer that I could find. So anyway, but I've made some good progress on the diorama, and just real quick, because a couple of folks aren't they were asking about, what's with all they didn't understand what's going on. I'm a big fan of science fiction, along just about everything else. And the War of the Worlds, 1953 War of the Worlds, still one of my favorite movies. And so the whole, when viewers of this channel sent me a bunch of these repop model Revell trucks, the Ford pickups and the Chevy 2.5 tons, and those mobile gas tractor trailers, all in 1/48 scale. For some reason, when I saw those 2.5 ton trucks, those are very much like the trucks they use when they're making the big escape scene in War of the Worlds, where they run into the rioting mobs, everything. And that's what popped in my head. And I was saying, yeah, I can make an Exodus scene with that. And the actual piece of music is called Exodus from L.A. So the diorama is inspired. You never really get into the story of the people that escape. The story deals with our protagonist and the aliens, but instead of making it that specifically, I thought, what would be better is just make it sort of an unknown threat, and it can be, alien invasion or anything else, or atomic attack, or, kaiju monster, whatever. The point is, everyone's escaping, and because it was LA in the movie, I just decided we'll just use LA, and everyone's escaping the city in a War of the Worlds style. So it's inspired by it, but it's not actually the movie itself. But anyway, you love me now, don't you? Oh, you like that. So anyway, that's what that diorama is about. But it kind of, initially I just intended to make it and take a couple of photographs. But as I started painting each character, and it's a weird little thing. You're painting a character, and as you're painting it, in your mind you start developing a personality, a story for this particular character you're painting. And for long, you're painting all these characters, and each one has a story, and you realize you're telling a story, and it sort of took on a life of its own, like I say, and now it evolved from just being a snapshot of a diorama of people escaping some sort of unseen threat into this 10-minute long radio show with pictures. And of course, people are being rearranged, different photos taken and everything. And a viewer of the show sent me some fantastic recordings of the original music, which was perfect. So so now it's more of a radio show with pictures, and I figure it'll be 10-12 minutes long when I'm done. And of course, that means once I get all the photos taken, of course, I realized as I was making it, wait a minute, I've got this period correct 1/48 scale Army helicopter, and I'm like, oh, I can work that in easily. And for long, I was like, I wish I had some more military assets. And Hobby Lobby had the 1/48 scale Atlantis M46 Patton, which some of you guys have said is actually an M26 Pershing relabeled. I'm I need to look into that. But anyway, the point is I have a period correct tank to put in there, and I almost bought a bunch of them. I was like, no, just one, because the whole idea is they're stretched for assets. They don't have entire platoons of tanks to oh, she's, look at that, oh, she's going, but maybe, you know, one lone tank could be spared to help protect these people later on. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I've got these military jets that are also 1/48 scale, and I was like, okay, you know, this white Banshee I've got is period correct because the Navy didn't get rid. This is taking place around 59, I guess, because somebody pointed out an anachronism. Though the infantry I'm using, one of them had an M60, which entered, or excuse me, they had M14s, which entered the inventory in 59, and an M60 that entered in 57. So it's late 50s, pre-1960. But the Banshee was also period correct. Yay, because much to my surprise, I got rid of the Banshee after they got rid of the Panthers. They got rid of the Panthers in like 59, the Grummins, but they kept the Banshees around until 61. So you're just adorable. So, and I'm not getting bent out of shape about the whatever anachronism might be there, because this is all in good fun. And but you know, you try to keep it as accurate as you can. So that's where we are on that. And wife and I have chores to do today. So once we get back with that, I'll get a little work done this afternoon. And the cat is so relaxed. You know, cats can be relaxing. When she relaxes like that, you tend to relax with her. Well, that's where we are, boys and girls. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a great day, and model on. Can I stop now? Oh gosh, she's in there going on the side of her mouth going. That's so adorable. Okay, Daddy's got to go to work now. Oh no, where are you going, Daddy? No, don't stop rubbing me. I'm not ready for you to stop. Oh, she's grabbing my arm. Come here, human. Come here, human.